All right. I appreciate you being here. My name is John Williams, and thank you very much for clicking on this A Conversation with Brett Smith-Daniels. At brettsmithdaniels.com it says, quote, once described by Matt Sorum of Guns N' Roses as the future of rock and roll, singer-songwriter and renowned guitarist Brett Smith-Daniels has shared the stage with music legends such as Mick Taylor of the Rolling Stones, Micky Moody of Whitesnake, and Randy Bachman, the Bachman-Turner Overdrive, and the Guess Who. It continues saying, since first becoming active in the music industry over a decade ago, Brett has been featured on notable works like CBC's Dragon Den, BBC Introducing, and in The Independent. And end quote there. Brett has become a dear friend of mine the last several years. He's got a new single out. He's got a plan for a record. Let's touch base, catch up, and have a good old-fashioned conversation. Thank you in advance for your time, no matter how much you give Brett and I in checking out this conversation. And if I was to give you any cheeky next steps, it would be to please consider going to whatwasthatradio.com, a recently launched radio station that is all about music discovery and is a foundation as well. A radio station foundation hybrid where all earnings are split 50-50 for myself and the team, and then putting as much money in the pockets of artists that inspire us the world over as we move forward. The third coffee of the day?
Third coffee of the day, yeah.
I'm just constantly rolling with a refillable IKEA glass tea situation.
I like that.
That's the second one of these today. And I usually get about 3 cups in them. So there you are. And it's even got the green in it. So in theory, the green screen... No, I'm not going to pour... There's too much tea in it. Okay. Well, let's crack on with this chat. Let's catch up, Brett Smith-Daniels. I'm so excited to... It seems like we've been trying to catch up for a year. But it's been a hell of a year. And now here we are on the eve of Teenagers from Mars, or for those watching after the 21st of January 2021, Teenagers from Mars is out there. So firstly, how on earth are you? And tell us a little bit about Teenagers from Mars and why you chose now to put it out there.
Yeah, of course. Well, I actually wrote this song in early 2019. I saw Greta Thunberg, and I was in the UK at the time, and I watched a sort of BBC documentary on climate change, and obviously it talked a lot about her involvement. And I just I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next morning having had this weird dream about being on a spaceship on my way to Mars. Right. You know, and we'd screwed it all up, and yeah, it was kind of, and I had Life on Mars by David Bowie, and Rocket Man by Elton John, and Big Yellow Taxi by Joni Mitchell going through my head in this dream. And I kind of woke up kind of humming all those songs the next day. And yeah, and then, you know, sat down, I think it was like 6 a.m. or whatever, at my parents' house when I was visiting them back over there. And just sort of came out all in one go. It took me a while to get into the studio to record it because, as you know, as a full-time musician, it's quite expensive to do that sort of thing. Yeah, I went up to Silverside Sound in Crofton, BC. You know Lucas that runs that.
Love those guys. Yeah.
And me and Malcolm and Flood kind of worked on tracking the song with Lucas, and had a couple of really fantastic musicians. Really grateful to have had them on there. Nick the Riviere, who's a local kind of trombone and trumpet player.
I was going to ask, are they real? I'm interrupting because I'm excited. Yeah. I was going to ask. It didn't sound MIDI, so these are all real brass section.
Yeah.
Okay, continue. I love that. Continue.
Yeah, so Nick the Riviere, he's a fantastic local sort of orchestral arranger, if you will. So I went around to his house one day, and we kind of got the horn charts charted out for that. So it's him and Miguel Valdez, who's in the Afro-Cuban All-Stars. Fantastic trumpet player, and a guy called Dana Patrick Tower, who plays in my live band. He played the drums on this track, and then a violinist, really fantastic player called Amy Lintoth. She's I think just finished up at UVic music department studying classical, but yeah, she did violin. And yeah, it was just great because for me, I've always had this vision of rock music not really being confined to the guitar, bass and drums like it has been the last sort of 50 years. I think it's about time that more was done in the vein of like ELO, but kind of taking that out of the context of classic rock and kind of moving forward with that in a slightly different direction. But yeah, so that's basically it, really.
And did this start the recording? Is this before lockdowns? Is this during lockdowns, which meant there were curveballs to be dealt with? How did that process pan out?
Yeah, so this track was recorded in summer of 2019, so it's a year and a half ago now.
Okay.
And basically the idea, I mean, as you would know, when you're working a project of any kind, you've got kind of a vague idea of how it's going to go, and then it all goes pear-shaped, and you kind of have to, do
the battle of the mind.
Yeah. So I thought, well, I'll go into an actual recording studio and I'll do all of it there. And then after the cost of the first song, I thought that isn't going to work for me financially. Got to figure out another way around that. So coincidentally, sort of 5 or 6 months in, we're sort of finishing up the mixes for this, and I'm ready to get mastered and all the rest of it. And then COVID hits, and I thought, I've got a little bit of money saved up, not a ton, but I'm going to just put some money into some home recording equipment and see what I can do from home. I've got all these friends that have this amazing studio stuff that I can run the tracks by them on the way through the sort of mixing and mastering process. But let's see just how good I can get it from the spare bedroom of our 5th floor apartment.
Yeah. And that's what's behind you then, by looks of it. You're in it.
Yeah. No, it's this is actually a bedroom closet with a little bit of foam from Amazon Prime. A collection of eclectic things off of Facebook Marketplace. It's quite interesting because as a guitar player, I can't make a lot of noise at home. So the big obstacle was not annoying my neighbours, but this little thing up here is a brilliant device called Capture X, which I can run any valve amp in, and it mimics the sound of a speaker. So I can have the thing dimed at 10:30 at night. It's not pissing anybody off.
No one even hears it.
Yeah, no, it's just through headphones. So that's that and MIDI libraries for keyboards and stuff like that. It's just been
really helpful.
Real kind of discovery experience for me since lockdown started, or shut down, I guess, here, because we haven't really had the full UK style thing here yet. So I'd had all these songs for years, and I think they say you've got 10 years to write your first album and then 3 months to write your second one or whatever. I definitely think when I put this out and it's out there in the world later in the year, it's going to be a scramble to find the next kind of thing to be inspired by. But it's been a really interesting experience so far. Not quite done recording the album yet, being really honest. It's very much in the works at the moment, but it should all be done and out kind of on shelves by the end of 2021. So it's quite exciting for me.
Yeah, and I just to step back a bit, just can you pull that piece of gear down, or is it all connected in? I'm just kind of intrigued to see what you mean by the mimicker and.
See if I can do that.
I like the details. It's all fixed. So what was it called again? Yeah. It's the
Capture X.
Capture X.
2 Notes Torpedo. Actually, I've got the box here.
You don't have to take anything apart. Everything looks perfectly placed there.
I think it's all wired in there. But
just expand on that again. So you can route any amp through it, or any and.
Yeah, no, if there's any guitar players watching or whatever, and you live in an apartment, or your spouse doesn't like too much noise around the house, even basically, a couple £100, so it's a bit of an investment, but
right.
Little box, and it's about yay big. I've started using it whenever I do what limited socially distanced live stuff I've been able to do since the pandemic began, as well. And it's fantastic. You just, any valve amplifier that would be too loud for a home environment, you just run through this thing, and it runs through what's called impulse responses. So it basically mimics the sound of a live amplifier cabinet mic'd up in a room. And they've gone through and digitally measured the sounds of a recording studio. So you can kind of mimic that at home. And for me, I'm quite technologically challenged when it comes to the latest whatever. Like I'm not good with DAWs or anything like that, and definitely not digital software plugins. So it's been really helpful as just a guitarist to sit down and be like, right, this sounds like my amp dimed, but I'm not annoying anybody. now let's get creative, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting because I studied music technology 18, 19 years ago. Cubase has changed a little bit since then,
Yeah.
and it's not my world, in terms of audio editing for broadcast, TV, radio. That's different to the finite requirement and the detail of which you could explore these outlets for creating records. Do you feel, because you in Victoria have been rampant up until COVID struck with your performing in bars and clubs and the cover bands and let alone
Yeah.
your own material and other bands that you're in, it was just everything, everything, everything. How has your life balanced out? Because the toing and froing of what can and can't happen. I've seen you've been out and about, socially distanced, and the venues that you've been in have been very, very mature about how they've gone about it, following guidelines. But how is that flip flop, let alone when you're trying to put an album out, let alone when you're
Yeah.
looking for inspiration for what might flesh out to be an album? How has that actually affected you? How have you pulled through to focus on Teenagers from Mars, to galvanize and push on with your passion and your craft?
I think, being honest, much like everybody else, there was a period last year where it's kind of like, and now what?
Yeah.
I think, moving forward from that period, for me, what's been really valuable has just been kind of diving head on into other people's art. I always find, whenever things slow down for me work-wise, I like to take a step back and look at what other people are doing and kind of get inspired, really. The bit of online teaching that I've been doing and the few in-person socially distanced things I've been doing to, just make ends meet and pay the bills and put groceries on the table, they've been enough to keep me going. I think, at this point in my career, because I've been gigging professionally for like over a decade now, so it's interesting because it's definitely the first time like this where everything's shut down, not really by any fault of my own. So I think I almost take some solace in that because everybody else is going through the same thing. We're all kind of collectively in this nightmarish situation together. But at least what we have to be thankful for is that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm sure events will come back when they do. And hopefully for me and for a lot of other musicians that have their careers kind of put on hold in the performance sense, there's going to be a thirst for events and kind of livelihood after this, because I definitely think that I can't wait to go and sit in a pub, have a pint, listen to a really loud band, and come home with my ears ringing at 2 a.m.
Yeah. I mean, in all the years that I've known you, Brett, you just don't seem easily flapped. You're always very grounded and very calm, and that's why I asked that. And I've asked any of the musicians and creators that have been kind enough to chat with me during what was at launch and growing stages of the infancy of this new station and project, because it's just you say that you seek inspiration from other people so that you in turn might inspire others. You've just been so calm through the whole conversation. I've never seen you be stressed out or, oh my gosh, or manic or, and so how is that just how you've always been? I mean, because I was saying before this conversation, is it okay if we jump back into years ago when you were part of the Dragon's Den here in Canada and you're 15 at the time and they strike a deal that didn't become the deal? But even the Brett then that gave the speech to the Dragons, you still have the exact same, I'm Brett, I'm chilled, we're good. So what are the lessons that you've learned and the character do you feel, how is your life, how have you grown in these last several years? And how do you think others can, if you're seeking inspiration from others, maybe there are some that are watching you and thinking, I wish I was this chilled right now. I mean, is there a meditation side gig? Is there a certain shake? I mean, or are you just fortuitously, all right, let's just deal with it one step at a time?
I definitely think that it's interesting that you hark back to that, because for me, as a 15-year-old, your worldview, especially, I moved around a bit because mum and dad obviously moved back and forth a lot when I was a kid, so I never really had my feet on the ground in that regard. And at that point in my life, as a teenager, you've got a very limited worldview anyway, so you're not really sure what's to come, and everything seems like the biggest thing ever. So I remember going into that with grandiose expectations of what was going to transpire. And, on one hand, it was a fantastic experience, and I'm really, really grateful for the experience to do that and the exposure. And I think the confidence that gave me going forward, that, hey, if lightning can strike once, to a very unpolished teenager who, by all accounts, wouldn't have been able to score many professional gigs at that point, on a national show, then it can certainly happen after 10 years of grinding and really kind of working on myself as a musician.
Growing. You're getting better every day.
Well, yeah, I think that's
opinion.
the thing. It's recognizing that, wherever you are, you're always going to be better in the future if you grind and work hard. And, if your best isn't good enough right now, at some point it will be. And for me, that was a really good lesson to learn early on, because, there was an element of cockiness there when I was a teenager that I definitely don't have now, because I've been knocked down to earth enough by just sort of life experiences. 6 months after that show, I was back in the UK, in Hampshire, where I'm originally from, washing dishes at a pub in Burley in the New Forest for £3.68 an hour. So it just, you can't count your horses or count your chickens before they hatch or whatever. You can't anticipate that everything's just going to happen for you. It's going to be a grind. And even the people I know that have done really well in life, and I'm talking like way ahead of anything I could even dream of doing right now, have had their fair share of trials and tribulations. So I think, reading biographies of people that have done well for themselves in this crazy music world, and kind of taking solace in the fact that everyone has their kind of wilderness period. Even if we're all going through this collectively at the moment, you know that everybody else that you talk to that's a musician, that most of my mates are either doing what I'm doing, or if they can't make enough money to cover the rent, they're stacking shelves at the nearest supermarket, and that's absolutely fine, because we're all going through that together, and there's no shame in temporarily being set back, as long as you pick yourself up afterwards and shake yourself off and just go for it, because life's too short not to.
Yeah, and I think that's what's definitely well said. That's what's definitely propelled you and galvanized you is, well, I don't think I want to be, no disrespect, I don't think I want to be washing these plates right now.
Yeah.
And here we are several years later, and things are very different. It's interesting that we're both in our cupboards. I've just got a green wall painted all around me, so it's hiding the fact that I'm in a cupboard. But it's right here. And we've got the same sound padding and everything. I cannot play guitar like you, though, just to make that very, very clear. But what is a book then? Has there been a book that you found, autobiography-wise, that you've kept diving back into during COVID? Or is there one that comes to mind that you think that musicians absolutely just need to get in their head?
Yeah, there's a few really good books that I've read over the years. Being really honest, I'm not a huge reader, but when I do read it seems to have a big impact on things. I sort of sit and read one book every year or whatever, but I then sort of hark back to, hey, what did this person do in this situation? And I read the Leslie Ann Jones biography on David Bowie around the time I started writing Teenagers from Mars and a lot of the other songs that are going to go on the album. And that was really interesting, because, there's someone that's had decades in the industry. And for me as well, because I lived in South London, surrounded by a lot of people that knew him growing up. Around the time I was reading that book, there's quite a few people that I knew that were referenced in the book. And that was just really fascinating to me, because it's someone I've looked up to my whole life, that obviously because of the fact he's no longer around, I'll never have the chance to meet or get to know at all. But a few people in my life that were fortunate enough to be around him around the age I am now, back in London or whatever, reading about them in the book and kind of drawing from the inspiration that his first album, for instance, was a total commercial failure. No one wanted to play it, and then he came out with Space Oddity, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
There's a few people like that I just look at and am continually inspired by. and another one of them is Bob Geldof from Boomtown Rats, just real personal hero, and Brian May from Queen is just like top of the pile for me, just all around great guy, and in my opinion a really good role model to follow, because he's kind of steered clear of the more rocky path that you can take as a musician.
Indeed, he's an absolute genius. Yeah. I was just on his Twitter yesterday, and he's selling to raise awareness for badgers in the UK. Have you heard that he's selling badger perfume and badger candles?
I got one of his badger t-shirts from years ago. I'm a real like animal guy, so
yeah, I can't afford it. It's £1,000, but it's because it's all going straight into this charity, so it's not a gimmick. No. It's just like, no, if you're serious about it, then throw us £1,000. But I thought, right now I cannot do that, and I don't think I would do that. But I'd buy a shirt like you did.
Yeah.
Well, fascinating. No, it's great to reconnect with you. What do you think? I don't know. To go back to I don't. If you want to flesh out a record, do you have to flesh out a record? Why can't it just be a song every month? And why put the pressure on yourself to flesh out a record when you don't know what the landscape's going to be the rest of the year, the next 2 years?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that's why I'm doing it, really. My girlfriend always says, kind of make your own luck, and I think that's an ethos that you can really live by, especially with stuff like this. Gigs grind to a standstill, and for my personal plan, up until this point, it was to get into the venues and use the old-fashioned model of you get a gig, you're playing every night of the week, you no longer need a day job, you can songwrite during the day, and then you use those gigs as a testing ground for your original material, but you throw it in between a bunch of covers, and then you test the quality of your own material against the iconic stuff that you're covering. And if it's having an impact on the audience amongst those songs, hey, this one's a winner, I'm going to stick it on an album or put it out as a song. If you finish the song and no one claps, you've probably got some work to do. And I think that's that was kind of the plan for quite a few years there, and I just kind of hit my stride with that. And then everything shuts down. But this is the nature of just sort of adapting and not being fazed by things, because all the songs are there. The idea is there, and I think that the idea to do an album as opposed to single tracks, it's kind of a mixture of the two, really, because in the streaming age, being pragmatic, albums, as much as I love them as a consumer and as an artist, they are kind of more of a historical artifact than a current medium. But that being said, I think grouping together a collection of music that's all related and has a common concept is something that's still worthwhile doing. And because of that, I think it's just, for me, just an artistic thing, really. So I'm going to be putting out a track every few weeks, like you say, on Spotify and Apple Music and what have you. And then
what was that?
And what was that? And congratulations on that, by the way. I'm really proud of what you're doing here.
Thank you.
Fantastic platform for independent music.
Step by step. Yeah.
Yeah. And so just sort of putting out a few tracks every few weeks, and then at the end of that, you kind of put it all together in a collage, and you say, this is the album. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I've done EPs before, and I've done 5 or 6 songs at a time, and I find that you kind of get one track that gets attention, and then you're stuck for material again, and you can't put out the songs you've already put on the album because everyone's already heard them if they bothered listening. So it's for me, it's I'll just give every track as much time as possible to have its own space, and then kind of sew them all together. And there is kind of an overarching concept for the album when it's finished, but I think that should be self-evident as the tracks kind of come out. The album itself is going to be called Disenchanted Youth, and it plays on the theme of being a young person going through all of this stuff right now. The post-truth politics and just general historical landmarks that we're living through. It'd be really interesting to see how people react. I'll be, very grateful if people like it. If not, on to the next thing,
Thank you for expanding on that. I'm glad we got some clarity on it. I think Teenagers from Mars is brilliant and a great starting point for what I don't know the rest of the album, but I know I'll hear it when you send it to me, and I expect I'll be excited by it. But I do want to go back to this cover thing. I'm so intrigued by that, because when I was in bands, I did not like doing covers, and because I love to talk a lot, and I can talk very loud thanks to theatre school. We never did any, and it was a group decision, sass aside. But there's nothing. I've been to thousands of shows, and that's not bragging, it's just fact, throughout my lifetime. 33 years old, I've been in performing arts since I was 13, whether it's musicals, stand-ups, but in particular when it comes to live music and original bands, I've been to thousands of shows, so fortuitously, in and around the UK, Scotland, Wales, etc., Ireland, and then here across and throughout Canada. And there's nothing that breaks my heart more than seeing an emerging band. I'm always at the back of the room in a big flipping jacket with my back against the wall, so I can focus on every single detail of all the members, every part of instrumentation, song structure, delivery, the lot. Every detail I am scanning constantly, and nothing breaks my heart more when I'm into a band and their original music in a nightclub where most people are there for show, not to watch. They're there because it's where to be. And nothing breaks my heart more than when someone goes into Arctic Monkeys, I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor, or The Strokes, right, last night, that is very popular in the last 10, 15 years, and the whole place goes, oh! That should not, and I'm sure that you don't put that much pressure on yourself, that should not depict whether you go ahead and release a song or record a song that you played prior, because without familiarity, you're not necessarily going to get that galvanized reaction. Now, I know that I'm not speaking for you, I'm just getting passionate about what hurts, is that I don't want artists to feel that they can't open up, because just because no one's going to be Arctic Monkeys, they're a unique specimen. No one's going to be David Bowie. That's a unique, and damn right no one's going to be David Bowie. That's a unique specimen. So I'm intrigued if you could expand on that. Has there been songs that you've gone, I don't know if I want to do that? Have you grown up and then gone, well, that doesn't really matter. I still got a good feeling. I want to get it out there.
Yeah. I don't necessarily mean like it's an absolute
not
slam
cutthroat. If you could expand on it, I'm so intrigued by your thoughts on that.
I think one of the biggest things that for me personally is part of the development and writing and producing a song, because I've got really into production as well, is arrangement. And what I more mean by that is that you might have some value in the song that you're performing, but if you get to the end of it and it's either felt a little too long-winded, or one of those lyrics really stands out once you sing it out loud in front of a crowd and you go, I'm not sure that one fits, or I'm not quite sure about this element of it. It kind of forces me to go a little bit back to the drawing board, in the sense that I'll be a bit more not critical, but kind of view it more from the outside, looking in, and go, okay, if I was listening to this right now, would the 50-second guitar solo be necessary, or would the lyric in the third verse that kind of brings the verse on by another 30 seconds be necessary?
Yeah.
And so I try and look at it in the sense that I would look at like a cover song, which, as much as I love performing my own original music, more than anything I could ever cover, that should be self-evident for anyone that's ever seen me play my own stuff. It's interesting to be a student of those songs, in the same way that the Stones way back when, or the Beatles, or whoever would go out and they'd perform a load of covers, and I think that's how they started, really, is Cabin Club, they'd throw in their own tunes, and then all of a sudden the audience wasn't there to see a dance band anymore, they were there to see them and their music. And I still think that concept works in the 21st century if you're in the right environment, in the right space. And I think Victoria is one of the few places I've been to that you've got an open enough audience that they're willing to try things like that. I think that without bashing anywhere else I've lived, certainly when I was in London, it was more difficult to gain an audience that was willing to kind of go on a journey with you. You either played what they liked or they were gone.
Yeah.
And somewhere like here, it's great because, you know, it's a medium-sized city. It doesn't take that long to climb a ladder and be being booked enough to have a bit of an impact and have enough of a local following to fill a venue every weekend or what have you when things are in non-COVID times. And because of that, it also doesn't take that long for word to spread if you're doing original stuff. So I probably look at it from kind of an unusual perspective, but having tried the big city in London and really fallen flat on my face in a lot of ways. I made some great contacts and I had some great experiences that I never would have had otherwise. I definitely think that kind of almost failure of going there and realizing that, hey, you know, I'm probably not going to be a professional in London, but I might be somewhere else where they haven't got someone occupying my niche, has been a really valuable learning experience for me as an artist. And because I'm trying to tie kind of full-time professional musician life into being an artist and songwriter, it's finding that balance between the two. But yeah, I do agree with you. I think it's a tragedy when you know, people are confined to the covers thing. However much it's fed me over the years, sometimes it's nice when people can express themselves and do their own thing and be an artist, you know.
Yeah, I really appreciate you expanding on that. There's no wrong answer with this because we're all unique individuals and we've all got our own way of going about life. But I do find that particularly fascinating, the whole cover situation, because speaking of Canada, this is not 30 years ago when the Tragically Hip could move across from small town to small town and spread word and become Canada's house band. That's not quite. You can't. Pup out of Toronto, the punk rock band, they played the most shows, I think, of any band on the planet, according to Guinness Book of World Records a few years ago. I don't know if it was verified in the end or not. And that really helped propel them. But these are very particular circumstances and situations. And so I would just rather, as I said to any bands that I've been in prior, and by for anyone watching this has no idea who I am no messiah of the drum kit. I'm no magical elixir of talent. I just had my own way, like you've got your own way, in saying I would rather we work on harnessing our songs. And so what we would do is have a little Zoom recorder to always get audio of the whole gig in the best placed part of the room, usually by the sound guy, because it's always going to sound the best it can to him if he likes you. And then secondly, we bought a cheap GoPro after we played a few shows and made sure we recorded that to get the visual to see, okay, how are we interacting, how are we doing this, and how are the songs coming across. And it did become clear that, okay, maybe every song's got a guitar solo. Maybe there does need to be a song. And that's why I had a wry smile when you were saying that earlier. Maybe there does need to be one where they're like, oh. But then again, then there's bands like Spirit Box from here on Vancouver Island that have done nothing but release singles, have had a digital campaign from the start. They've only played 6 shows in their career. They're signed to one of the biggest labels in the world. They've got all the contract on their own agreement. They have built their baby in a way that seemed abnormal and different, and it is proving to be successful. And that is a whole other conversation on itself for maybe another time, when we're looking at, I don't know if you've been watching the UK Parliament discussing with the head of Universal Music and the royalty fees and the split, you know, and that 40% goes to them, 11% goes to the artist, and them saying, well, it's a risk and we look after them and blah, blah, blah. We need a new structure. We need new deals. And that's why you very kindly have got involved in what was that. And hopefully this community can build into a sense of, okay, let's try and influence respectfully to get more money in the pockets of the performers and the artists that create the music that bring us joy or make us think and have us here on a radio station or watching this YouTube video, etc. in the first place. That's a whole other conversation. But no, I appreciate the expanding on that, because I just think it's so important for my camera to get back in focus. When I get ranty, it gets confused. But I think what COVID is showing many of us right now, in so many different life lessons ways, is that you've got to be true to yourself. You have to go about life how you wish to, hopefully with compassion and understanding for others. But whether you're an artist, a poet, a musician, a shelf stacker, there's nothing wrong with doing what you want to do and what feels comfortable to you. And these systems can educate and can influence. Come back on me, camera. But they don't define. They don't define. So that's why I appreciate you opening up on all those things, because it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, no, it's huge topic, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think really at 35 minutes, I think we've hit the nail on the head with all the bits and bobs that we need to for this. I'm so excited. I can actually start playing it as of tomorrow, right? Teenagers from Mars. I'm just going to...
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I've just replaced your face with the little... I've replaced both of our faces with a sample. Can I play the YouTube sample?
Of course.
Hopefully this does not deafen you. You might not even hear it, but I'm going to play it. The camera setup I had with my screen sharing had like that. It didn't quite fit the whole Brett Smith Daniels in. Quick to finish with then the video. I'm glad that I played that and reminded myself that I had that ready. Thank you, Brain and Self, for doing so. Is that stock footage? Or
it is, yeah.
What happened with that?
Yeah, so actually there's really interesting quick thing there.
Perfect.
So with the rest of the album, other than this song, the device I'm using to record is actually an iPad. It's in front of me right now. It's what I'm talking to you on. I've got this monitor hooked up that does all of the kind of makes the screen bigger so I can see things better, and a little Bluetooth keyboard and a mouse. But in doing that, obviously got really into video editing on the iPad and got myself a Storyblocks subscription. Thing is, as an independent artist, you know, you want these stunning visuals, and you've got this huge idea for what you should do and all the razzmatazz and all that, and then you can't afford to do it.
Yeah, I was just doing this. You were looking down, but I was going money, money, money.
Yeah, exactly. And I started doing some research, and I noticed that like Coldplay and a few major acts had used stock footage in their music videos, and I thought, all right, it's good enough for them.
Yeah.
So I found some stuff which, you know, ironically has just been perfect for the song, and weave together this kind of storyline. And the video is going to come out slightly after the songs out on Spotify and stuff beforehand, and then the video is going to be a couple of weeks after, just to give it an extra plug and a push. And I'm not sure, I may have somebody else upload the video for me on their channel, because sometimes that's another thing that I've learned in researching releases the last few months, is sometimes if you speak to some big channels really nicely, they'll be willing to upload the video for you, which obviously as an artist gives you way more exposure for your song and interest in what you're doing. Then
who collects the royalties when that happens?
So yeah, that's the downside. You do not get in that scenario, you don't get YouTube advert money, but as the copyright holder, you still get royalties. So it's quite shrewd to do, because if your video randomly gets a couple 100,000 streams, you get the royalties on that, even though you haven't got the ad money. So it's worth it for them. As a business, it's worth it for you as well. So that will hopefully be out in a couple of weeks. But yeah, that's Storyblocks, and the app I used for it is it's called Luma Fusion. I think it's about $35, and the Storyblocks subscription is like $11 a month. So
that's not bad.
If you're like me and you're saving money for your debut album by cutting your own hair and and recording out of your spare room, you too might want to try Storyblocks.
Wonderful. Yeah, I agree. I might look into that for some silliness for the station here too. Awesome. Well, Brett, thanks so much for your time, man. I love you a lot, and I miss you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you when we can do that. I haven't drank in 2 years, but when Irish Times is getting going again with you in there, I'll be there with a pie and a glass of apple juice, and we'll kick back.
We'll be cheersing with a cup of tea, because I don't really drink a whole lot myself.
There you go.
I have the odd beer on occasion, but find that sort of stuff can take away from your focus, right?
Oh yeah. It's good to be clear best we can.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, pass on my regards to Emma and the family, and
Will do.
I'll message you when this is all good to do what. And I mean, I'm going to use definitely a large proportion of this tomorrow, or portion of this rather, tomorrow on the air when the single's out. And then this will go live to my subscribers straight away as soon as I've made it in a few hours. And then to the rest of What Was That, and anywhere to be shared around for those that want to tomorrow morning.
Sounds great. Yeah,
Bada
thank
boom,
you
bada
so
bing.
much. Really, really appreciate you having me on here, and congrats with all you're doing. I'm really pleased to see, you taking on this new platform and everything. I think it's really cool.
I just want to get more money into the one thing I'll tell you is the last thing is what I'm really excited about is the app. The app right now it's the first version. It's very basic, but the second app, just to get your reaction as a musician, because I haven't really shared it with many people yet, is let's say a song's playing and you're like, oh, Brett Smith Daniels, I like this. You can list it. There's a list option in the app. That's not groundbreaking. But the second thing is if you tap on Brett Smith Daniels, it would then open up a portal that says, where do you want to go? Website, Bandcamp, iTunes, YouTube, or whatever sources you want to be linked as an artist. And I'm hoping that most people then select Bandcamp, go straight through buy, and Bandcamp having the most money that goes back to the artist easily compared to the others.
Yeah.
That's the biggest data entry part of the app and that I'm working on with some wonderful people over in Vancouver. And that is what I think will help propel the next stage of What Was That, because so many people have already very kindly invested in and are backing me in what I'm doing, but we need that palpable entity to showcase what we're really trying to do here in elevating performers. And so I think from the 4 months of support I've got so far, all the money that I've earned after it's split 50-50 is going into this app, because the data entry is mammoth when I'm adding 350 new bands a month.
Yeah.
And the foundation of the station is 3 years old, but 90% is within the last 12 months, if not the last 6 months of release. So that's the next step. That's what I'm working towards.
Sounds fantastic. No, I really love the platform you set up. I think it's really, necessary. And yeah, when you said about it first on Facebook months ago, I was like, finally, and I think you're the right guy to do it as well, because you're really kind of in with a bunch of musicians and friendly with everyone, and great interviewer, and you're not afraid to take risks. So I think that's it's got me really excited. I've got quite a few friends in the UK that have started following you because of
that's where the people are in Hampshire and Somerset, is it? It's your that's awesome, because I can't see what cities, but I can track where people are. And I was like, what are all these English people? I was like, Mum, is that you? She's like, no, Jonathan, not today. It's like, David, is that you? To my brother, no, not today. It must be all your clan. That's great. Well, thank you to them.
No problem. I just I thought it'd be nice. There's a few friends of mine in London as well, like Tony Chick. He's probably sent you something, Major Baldini, on emails. He used to run a jam session in London. I used to play it all the time, and but yeah, it's just really it's great to see somebody doing this and taking initiative. As much as I have to play ball with what's going on with streaming, it's nice to know that there's another avenue that you can take.
Well, but this is the big thing, is that it's not me against the world. It's not you. Everyone, radio is still powerful. Streaming services are powerful. We just need to realign. We need to tear up the contracts and the rules, and we need to just re-spark what the true passion was behind these projects and outlay for managers or stream company creators and holders. And so right now, What Was That is just quietly going about its business, because there is no money going back to artists right now. There's the exposure, and that's the fine line that these industries walk with. Is like you're talking about the YouTube thing. We can help elevate, but I mean, you're not necessarily, depending on what you never. It's a fine line. It's a game that you play. But my plan, the long story short, is okay. Right now, I pay $150 license fee to SOCAN here in Canada, and if I make a certain amount of money a month, which is $3,000 a month, which I'm nowhere near right now of subscribers, then they'll take a 3% cut each month. That's still not enough. I believe it should be at least 50-50 split. If you're a serious broadcaster and you really believe in the arts and the culture of the community that you're jumping into, then it's not about getting flaming rich for yourself. It's about getting that money in the hands of those that have brought you that intrigue to start that project in the first place. So it's not What Was That is better than anyone else. It's just trying to, and hopefully in 5 to 6 years, come and knock on the doors of the American Institute of Music and SOCAN here in Canada and say, look, I've built a community that believe in levity, if that's the right word, that believe in respect, that believe in 50-50 split for the artists.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea.
Let's just go about slowly building that, and then we'll have discussions when we're allowed to have them. But yeah, there's no. Is that my green screen board? Oh yeah, yeah, okay. Just checking it. You see the little bit of the light there as the sun goes down. Anyway, that's just my brain cutting me off, because I don't want to. It is about whatever serves the artist and the individual best. You'll make your own decision, and hopefully what was that can slowly, without posturing, go about affecting change to bring more back to those that I know bring me so much joy, and get this working overtime, depending on genre of song, type of song, etc. Anyway, 45 minutes. It's been 45 wonderful minutes. You stayed so calm the whole way through, as expected. And just have a great evening, man. I just really appreciate your time.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And we'll definitely have to get together for a cup of tea when this is all over.
Yeah.